and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tenani. Last week, we talked about the composition of gang-stalking units and how it can make it more difficult to expose these units. The discussion led into how new recruits are gathered, but due to conflicts between the need for secrecy and a large workforce, perps tried to involve the audience as well as the TI's friends and family in the campaigns. One TI story of betrayal by friends and family was shared, and some tips were given on how to recover from betrayals. A list of characteristics of toxic friends was given, as well as advice on how to choose friends wisely. The point that anyone can become a TI was reviewed, with a news story about a cop who was stalked and thrown into a psych ward by his fellow cops because he blew the whistle about the police department's traffic ticket quotas. The discussion included how some parents got their kids involved in gang stalking activities and how TIs can use the kids' involvement to desensitize the prompts. A news story was shared about a mother who teamed up with her daughter and babysitter to cyberbully her neighbor's child. The neighbors seemed to be on friendly terms until this betrayal drove the child to suicide. There are no vocabulary words for this week. Okay, let's go.
Now it's time for FYI, essential information for TIs. Most adult bullies were child bullies who never matured. Similarly, the way people respond to bullying was probably learned from their peers during grade school. It's important for TIs and bystanders to understand their current responses to bullying in order to modify ineffective responses. You're about to receive some information on how to handle this right now.
Gang stalking units seem to be composed of a network of bullies and their allies. It has been appropriately described as bullying on steroids. It's important that the public is aware of the ripple effect of bullying. The biggest misconception about bullying is that it only involves the bully and the victim. Bullies are very sensitive to their environment and social position. They truly believe in the pecking order theory and live by that. Here's a brief explanation. Whether or not there is a pecking order among humans is debatable, but some people are trying to create one. It was observed that chickens peck each other to decide who is dominant. What happens is that certain chickens get pecked more than others. The more dominant will get pecked less than the weaker chickens. The result was a dominant chicken who no one pecked, the weak chicken who everyone pecked, and those who fit in between. Anyone who lives by this philosophy would try to be high on the pecking order. One way to do this is through bullying and other acts of deliberate aggression. Similar to the pecking order, there are three main subjects involved in any bullying incident. Keep in mind that gang stalking incidents are essentially bullying incidents. The three subjects are the bully, the target, and the audience. The ripple effect of bullying happens when a bully attempts to tear down a target when other people are around. The effect is similar to throwing a pebble into a calm lake. Waves are created that spread for some distance. The bullying incident has a direct effect on the target, but spreads to the audience. The second greatest impact is on those close to the target, then those who know of the target, then those who have seen the target but don't know him or her. And as word of the incident spreads and details are distorted, it affects those far away from the target or bully to a lesser degree. But consider the range one bullying incident reaches. So the bully becomes feared among more people than just the target. And there's also an impact on how the target is perceived across the same range. Let's examine several types of grade school bullies. The following comes from Grade School Bully by AdHealth.
In a 1978 study, Always described three different types of bully: the aggressive bully, the passive bully, and the bully victim. These characterizations still hold true today. Aggressive bullies are the most common type of bully. Young people who fall into this category tend to be physically strong, impulsive, hot-tempered, belligerent, fearless, coercive, confident, and lacking in empathy for their victims. They have an aggressive personality and are motivated by power and the desire to dominate others. They are also likely to make negative attributions, often seeing slights or hostilities in those around them where neither actually exist. According to Always, the aggressive bully tends to be the most popular in the early school years, and then less so in the upper grades. Perhaps because young children are more likely than older students to admire the macho image. As students get older, they become better able to think critically about peers and leaders. Passive bullies, unlike the ultra-confident aggressive bullies, tend to be insecure. They are also much less popular than the aggressive bullies and often have low self-esteem, few likable qualities, and unhappy home lives. Passive bullies also appear to have difficulties concentrating and focusing their attention at school, as well as violent outbursts or temper tantrums that lead to problems with their peers. Rather than initiating a bullying interaction, passive bullies tend to hang back until one is already underway, usually at the instigation of an aggressive bully. Once a bullying incident begins, passive bullies become enthusiastic participants. In fact, passive bullies are very quick to align themselves with and display intense loyalty to the more powerful aggressive bullies. Some researchers refer to this group as anxious bullies. Bully victims represent a small percentage of bullies who have been seriously bullied themselves. Bully victims are often physically weaker than those who bully them, but are almost always physically stronger than their own victims. They possess some of the same characteristics as provocative victims. They are easily aroused and sometimes provoke others who are clearly weaker than they are. Bully victims are generally unpopular with their peers and are more likely than other types of bullies to be anxious and depressed. Deirdre Woke of the University of Hertfordshire, England, identified a fourth group of bullies, pure bullies. It appears that pure bullies are healthy individuals who enjoy school and use bullying to obtain dominance, says Woke, who labels these children cool operators. Pure bullies have not been victimized themselves, and they are rarely absent from school, presumably because they enjoy victimizing their peers. In contrast to the popular notion that bullies lack social skills, research has shown that bullies are actually quite adept at reading social cues and perspective taking. rather than using these skills pro-socially, such as to empathize with others. They instead use them to identify and prey on peer vulnerabilities. In addition, all data point in the same direction that bullies have no problem with self-esteem.
These are descriptions of child bullies, but it's important to know for two reasons. One is that some TIs who have children report that their children are also harassed or bullied during the campaigns. This information may help the kids to understand what is going on and to not blame themselves for the bullying. Two, as mentioned before, unreformed child bullies grow up to be adult bullies, and the campaigns are full of adult bullies. It's helpful to see where these behaviors began. It's unfortunate that the current trend condones pure bullies. In some ways, society currently supports picking on people for fun, and too many kids have gained social clout by being known as the mean girl or guy. There has to be a shift of some sort to adjust this imbalance. This excerpt began with a quote that said,
"He gave me that look, you know, like, hey, who do you think you are? I thought this kid needs to find out right now who's in charge around here."
That is a main point in bullying and gang stalking. The bullies carve out their territory without much discussion with anyone else. Then they proceed to use this territory as an excuse to harass others. The territory could be anything, real or imagined: a romantic partner, a vehicle, property, a title, a skill, or any other thing. When a bully feels inferior or insecure around someone, they usually accuse the person of invading or trying to take their territory. For example, "Are you checking out my boyfriend or girlfriend? So you think you're smarter than me? Did you touch my car? You think your house is nicer than mine?" Or the classic, "You think you're better than me, don't you?" Most of the time, the person being accused doesn't know that the bully's territory exists or that they somehow tried to take it. Bullies make these accusations when they aren't getting enough attention or feel insecure. It's really just an excuse for the bully to bully someone and blame the victim. Another interesting sentence was, "All data point in the same direction, that bullies have no problem with self-esteem." Why would someone with high self-esteem bully? Isn't insecurity one of the main reasons for bullying? Let's consider the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. The following comes from "What is the difference between self-esteem and self-confidence?" by Liv Mayagawa.
Many people use the words self-esteem and self-confidence as if they were synonyms. Self-esteem and self-confidence are different. Self-confidence is one part of self-esteem. Self-esteem is the broader category, and self-confidence is one out of many subcategories of self-esteem. Self-confidence means confidence that you can successfully do things. If you are self-confident, you believe in your ability to accomplish the things that you set out to do. You can have high confidence in some areas while having low confidence in other areas. For example, you may feel confident in your ability to do well at work, but you lack confidence when it comes to building and maintaining deep and fulfilling relationships. Your level of self-confidence affects how well you manage to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to do. A person who is confident that she will pass an interview is much more likely to do so than a person who does not believe that she will be able to do it. Self-confidence thus affects your success in life in a very practical way. Self-esteem, on the other hand, means your sense of personal worth. It refers to how valuable you feel for simply being the person you are, regardless of what you accomplish. It is your attitude towards yourself as the person you perceive yourself to be. Therefore, it is much broader than self-confidence, as your self-esteem is the sum you get when you add up all your perceptions about yourself in terms of what you accomplish, how you feel, how you're behaving towards others, how others behave towards you, what happens to you during your life, your body perception, and so on.
The following comes from The Difference Between Self-Confidence and Self-Esteem by Social Psychiatry Blog.
Whilst self-esteem and self-confidence often go hand in hand, there is a clear difference between the two. Someone with high self-esteem can still have low self-confidence simply due to their personality and vice versa. A person who possesses both high self-esteem and high self-confidence will benefit greatly, as they will feel comfortable not only about themselves but also about how they appear to others. If a person has a low self-esteem, then they are not happy with certain elements of themselves, because a person's opinion of themselves comes from self-esteem. When people see themselves in a negative way and create a low self-esteem, normally it is because they are assessing themselves in the wrong way too. A lot of people with low self-esteem criticize themselves in every aspect they can and try to find small faults with areas of their life. People with low self-esteem often ask questions about their own life, such as, are you worthwhile in your job? Do people see you in a positive way? Are you happy with the way you look? The problem with these questions is that they are already hinting at negativity before the person even begins their self-analysis. People with high self-esteem are more comfortable with their life situation and don't question themselves. They are in the job they are in, and they have the friends around them they do because they are valued in the job and because the people like being around them. And so they take positivity from this. People with high self-esteem spend time enjoying what is right and don't spend time thinking about what might be wrong. Self-confidence is the ability to go out and promote yourself and know that you are sufficiently capable to do what you are asked or are asking to do. People who are self-confident spend a lot of their time focused on improving themselves and progressing in their lives rather than just resting with what they already have.
The last two paragraphs are a good summary of the bully and the victim. Some victims tend to be humble and or may have lower self-esteem than the bullies. Bullies usually mistaken someone who is humble for someone who has low self-esteem. A person can have high self-esteem and still be humble. These types acknowledge their skills but don't need to constantly brag about it or demand attention for it like most bullies do. The excerpt said, self-confidence is the ability to go out and promote yourself and know that you are sufficiently capable to do what you are asked or are asking to do. People who are self-confident spend a lot of their time focused on improving themselves and progressing in their lives rather than just resting on what they already have. People with low self-esteem often excel at some progressive activity. They know they are good at what they do, but still may not think highly of themselves. So a person like this may say, I know I'm good at ABC, but I still need to work on XYZ. This may propel them to become better and better at what they do. But they still may not value themselves enough. Bullies pick up on this and try to use it against the victim. In contrast, bullies tend to have high self-esteem. The excerpt said, people with high self-esteem are more comfortable with their life situation and don't question themselves. They are in the job they are in and they have the friends around them they do because they are valued in the job and because the people like being around them, and so they take positivity from this. People with high self-esteem spend time enjoying what is right and don't spend time thinking about what might be wrong. Here we have some child bullies and gang stalkers. They are surrounded by people who enjoy their company and the things that they do. They only focus on the good parts of their activities, a sense of dominance, affiliation with prestigious people, protection against being targeted, among other things. Take note, though, that the sense of power is false. The prestigious people probably wouldn't associate with the less prestigious unless it serves a useful purpose, and the protection against becoming a target is fragile. They probably don't dwell on what's wrong with gang stalking. This also goes along with their reluctance to identify with or have empathy for others. That is how someone with high self-esteem who thinks highly of him or herself can bully or gang stalk. They focus on what's right, what they're getting out of it, and the illusion of a privileged status while dismissing, ignoring, or denying most of the things that are wrong. So what about the insecurity part of bullying? It is possible to think highly of oneself, but not have confidence in one's ability. A bully may feel comfortable in their ability to dominate others, but could feel inadequate in establishing relationships that involve equality and good feelings. A gang stalker may think highly of themselves because they are part of what they consider a dominant group, but still feel insecure about their ability to, say, meet their career goals. Because self-esteem includes self-confidence, a bully may focus more on dominating others instead of improving their ability in order to keep their self-esteem high. Their way of competing with others is to try to use deliberate aggression and or covert tactics to lower other people's self-esteem. Hence, they can say something along the lines of, I know she does that better than me, but I can make her feel like dirt, so it doesn't matter. Or, yeah, he's pretty good at that, but he's weak. I almost made him cry the other day. This actually makes the bully feel better, so instead of actually working on their issues, they figure out new ways to tear others down in order to quiet their insecurities. It's a bit clearer how these people can make the time to engage in gang stalking. How the target and the bully is perceived depends on the society's values. The current trend is that the bully will be perceived as the dominant one and will be feared if the attacks are successful. Therefore, she or he is raised in the so-called pecking order. It is important to note that I said if the attack is successful. Targets have the ability to neutralize a bully incident. The audience or bystanders can also neutralize the effects that a bully incident has on them. But first, let's consider some of the ways that the victims and bystanders currently respond to a bully incident. The following is based on grade school bullying, but it is important because that's when most responses to bullying are learned and is repeated into adulthood. The following comes from Grade School Bully by @Health.
Victims. I'm 14 in March and I'm being bullied constantly. In nearly every class, I sit by myself because nobody wants to sit next to me. One of my few friends hangs around with other people because I think he is frightened if he is with me, he will get bullied. I'm sick to death and sometimes I feel like killing myself. I wish I was dead. Bullies do not randomly attack their peers. Instead, they target a specific subgroup of students who are often victimized over the course of several years. Just like bullies, victims are a heterogeneous group. Always describes 3 types of victims: the passive victims, the provocative victims, and the bully victim, which was described previously. Passive victims do not directly provoke bullies and represent the largest group of victimized children. They are socially withdrawn, often seem anxious, depressed, and fearful, and have very poor self-concepts. When compared with their non-victimized peers, passive victims have fewer, if any, friends, are lonely and sad, and are more nervous about new situations. This cluster of symptoms make them attractive targets for bullies who are unusually competent in detecting vulnerability. In the early grades, initial responses to bullying among passive victims include crying, withdrawal, and futile anger. In later grades, they tend to respond by trying to avoid and escape from bullying situations. Example, being absent from school, running away from home. While there is evidence that some of the characteristics of passive victims precede and contribute to their victimization experience, it is also clear that many of their personal attributes also result from being bullied. According to Spyware and colleagues, the victim's behaviors and emotional states may make them vulnerable to bullying. The bullying behavior towards them may perpetuate their issues with low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, and loneliness, which may make them increasingly vulnerable to bullying. Other researchers have described some subgroups that may be present within the broad category of passive victims. Vicarious victims or surrogate victims either witness or hear about bullying incidents at school. They are victims of the school's climate of fear and worry about their own potential to become targets of bullying. As a result of this perceived vulnerability, as well as concern about direct retribution from bullies, they choose not to help bullying victims or report bullying incidents, even though they often feel sympathetic, which often leads to feelings of guilt. False victims represent a small group of students who complain frequently and without justification to their teachers about being bullied by their classmates. This behavior seems to be a bid for attention and sympathy from the teacher. This is problematic for two main reasons. One, these children should learn that there are legitimate ways to get attention. And two, teachers who may be unsympathetic about the problem of bullying could use this behavior as an excuse to ignore all complaints about bullying. Perpetual victims are those victims who are bullied all of their lives. While perpetual refers to the duration of bullying rather than a subgroup of victims, it is interesting to consider the possibility that some children may develop a victim mentality whereby the victim role becomes a permanent part of their psyche. Provocative victims represent a small group of children who often behave in ways that arouse negative responses from those around them, such as anger, irritation, and exasperation. They possess a cluster of characteristics that are likely to disrupt a classroom and lead to social rejection by peers, including irritability, restlessness, off-task behavior, and hostility. Although they are a distinct subgroup, provocative victims often display characteristics of other groups of children as well, including pure bullies. For example, they have elevated levels of dominant, aggressive, and antisocial behavior and low levels of tolerance for frustration. And passive victims, for example, they are socially anxious, feel disliked by others, and have low self-esteem. Nathan, age 10, was described by his class teacher as a child who lived on the edge of his nerves, never still, and with his brain disconnected from his mouth. The latter trait made it likely that he would make loud remarks about other children's appearance or their work that would make them angry. He would then say to them, "What are you going to do about it then?" whereupon 2 or 3 of them might show him violently. Nathan was described as the most unpopular child in the school, as the one everybody loves to hate. It is important to keep in mind that students who fall into this category may possess a disability of some sort. For example, a learning disability or attention deficit disorder that contributes to their provocative behavior. In addition to helping these young people deal with the consequences of their victimization, it would also be helpful to assess the potential causes of their challenging behavior. If a disability is present, then an accurate diagnosis followed by targeted services could go a long way toward preventing further victimization. Multiple factors contribute to a bully's selection of victim, including the complicated interplay of a bully's motivation, a victim's characteristics, and the specific circumstances of the bullying situation. For example, availability may be a key factor in victim selection if a bully simply wants to elevate his or her status with peers. However, if a bully is looking for some sort of tangible payoff, then he or she might choose a target who is known to have money and likely to be submissive. If a bully wants to display power, then he or she might target a provocative victim who is noted for fighting back effectively.
Victims handle bullying in various ways. There may be a link between bullying and school violence. A victim may become so indignant about the maltreatment that she or he seeks revenge. Most victims seek assistance to stop the bullying before turning to violence. Unfortunately, they are ignored or receive inadequate assistance. Their initial complaints are usually dismissed after any acts of violence on their part, and the bullies are often presented as the victims instead. I think that false victims should also include bullies who claim to be victims in order to avoid being held accountable for their actions. I'm not condoning school violence in any way, just pointing out that preventing school violence needs to start with seriously addressing bullying. Victims aren't the only ones who engage in school violence or shootings. Bullies have also committed these acts. The link between a victim's suicide and bullying is so widely accepted that the word bullycide was coined to describe it. Bullycide is when a victim is driven to suicide due to the overwhelming effects of bullying. While some victims recover quickly from bullying, most suffer long-term negative effects. It is good for TIs to look back and see if they identify with any of these types of victims. If so, they should find out how that may negatively affect the way they are handling the gang stalking now. It's not about berating oneself for being a victim, but identifying any ineffective behavior that may have resulted from being victimized.
Bystanders. I don't like it that he is bullied, but I can't do anything about it or they will turn on me too. While far too many students report that they are bullies, victims, or both, the vast majority of young people are neither bullies nor victims. Instead, most students fall into the category of bystander. This group includes everyone other than the bully and victim who is present during a bullying incident. According to John A. Calhoun, President and CEO of the National Crime Prevention Council, 6 out of 10 American teenagers witness bullying in school 1 or more times each day. In addition to the terrible problems that bullying creates for those who are directly involved, student bystanders to bullying also experience feelings of fear, discomfort, guilt, and helplessness. According to the U.S. Department of Education, bystanders may experience the following: be afraid to associate with the victim for fear of either lowering their own status or of retribution from the bully and becoming victims themselves. Fear reporting bullying incidents because they do not want to be called a snitch, a tattler, or informer. Experience feelings of guilt and helplessness for not standing up to the bully on behalf of their classmate. Be drawn into bullying behavior by group pressure. Feel unsafe, unable to take action, or a loss of control. It is clear that bystanders display distinct patterns of behavior during a bullying incident. These responses represent students' attitudes towards the problem of bullying. For example, positive, neutral, indifferent, negative, as well as the actions they are likely to take during an actual incident. The bullying circle, based on Olias's early research as well as the research of Salmon Valley and colleagues, illustrate and describe each of these bystander roles. Bullying poisons the educational environment and affects the learning of every child, noted Dan Olweus. In addition to describing the various roles that students can play in a bullying situation, the bullying circle further depicts the importance of moving young people to the right, specifically away from the bullies and their supporters and towards defenders of victims. In a study by Bolton and Underwood, middle school students responded to the question, "What do you do when you see a child of your age being bullied?" in the following manner. 49% said they tried to help in some way. 29% said they did nothing but thought that they should try to help. 22% said they would not help because it was none of their business. A full third of the young people in this study indicated that they could see why bullying happened, which seems to suggest that they, at some level, accept and/or condone bullying behavior among their peers. And in another study by Whitney and Smith, 18% of the participating middle and high school students said that they would join in if their friends were bullying someone. While most attempts to reduce youth violence have focused on the perpetrator or the relationship between perpetrators and victims, it is increasingly recognized that such interventions do not go far enough in creating safe schools and communities. It is also critical to consider the role of bystanders whose influence in perpetuating or escalating violence has often been overlooked. According to Richard Hazler, professor of counselor education, Ohio University, if we don't involve bystanders, we can't solve the problem. The most dangerous place in a school is the restroom because of isolation. Well, you also can have isolation in the middle of a cafeteria if a bully convinces everybody else not to intervene. If we can show bystanders how to become involved as bystanders, we reduce the isolation. Bystanders clearly have a range of choices when it comes to bullying. They can passively accept it, overtly encourage it, or denounce a bully's actions and provide support to the victims. In fact, it is clear that many students who possess characteristics typical of victims are protected against bullying because of such social factors as peer acceptance and supportive friends.
The use of isolation is common in bullying and gangstalking. Whereas in childhood bullying, the victim could be isolated in a restroom and the cafeteria, a private and public place, the TI can be isolated in a private place such as their home through constant surveillance, or in any public place where the harassment occurs in a manner that doesn't alert the bystanders or gives the illusion of mental illness if the TI reports it. Many TIs can feel the isolation as they speak of their experience through different media and try to raise awareness, only for the response to be more mild than it should be. Many people know what it's like to feel lonely in a crowded room. In addition, anyone who's ever been in an abusive relationship know that the abuser can abuse them in a crowded room and others won't notice. A TI's experience is similar to both of these, except they are forced into loneliness and there is more than one abuser. It's important that bystanders realize their choices when it comes to bullying. They can ignore it, overtly encourage it, or denounce the bully's actions. Bullying hasn't always been accepted. In fact, what kept bullying at bay was that people spoke up against it and would not tolerate it. How did bullying become so accepted and even promoted? Probably because in society's effort to understand and help the bully, we ended up rationalizing and accepting the harmful behavior. The bully ended up feeling okay about being a bully instead of addressing the issues that caused the dysfunctional behavior. It's still possible to make the necessary corrections. If you have essential information for TIs, please send them to protectlifenow@yahoo.com.
TIs, it's time to know thy enemy.
That was the first part of Bullying 101, from Romper Room to the boardroom. It appears that this is just a vicious cycle that begins in elementary school and has become an accepted part of our society. It robs society of people who are capable of living up to their potential and leaves behind predatory individuals whose goal is to maintain an environment filled with contention and repression. Bullying is society's cancer because it attacks the healthy parts of society and can replicate itself rapidly with every attack that ends in its favor. Unfortunately, bullying also infects the workplace. It is important to note that adult bullies can cause more severe damage than child bullies. A child bully can cause long-lasting damage to a victim's self-esteem, and if unreformed, the child bully becomes an adult bully who can wreak havoc on a person's finances, family, health, and cause physical harm. Adult bullies usually form cliques and create office mobs. The office mobs select a victim, then proceed in trying to destroy the person's career and life. The victim is at risk of losing their job, having their career destroyed, having their families devastated by financial losses, as well as damages done to their reputation and other effects. The adult victim may not have the resilience or time that the child victim has to recover from the bully's attacks. Here's a brief on workplace bullying, also known as office mobbing. The following comes from Sociopaths and Bullying in the Workplace by Jan Aylesworth.
The definition of sociopath is not clearly agreed upon in the psychological literature, but as my psychologist friend alluded, narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, is recognized as legitimate. Both NPD and sociopathology are relevant for the workplace because they are studied in connection with bullying in the workplace. Narcissistic personality disorder symptoms. According to the U.S. National Institutes of Health, some of the symptoms associated with NPD are taking advantage of other people to achieve one's own goals, requiring constant attention and admiration, disregarding the feelings of others and lacking empathy. Bullying in the workplace. Here's some of what the academic literature has to say about workplace bullying. Because bullying usually takes place behind the scenes, supervisors and even co-workers often do not realize that it's happening. Among participants in a study by Judith Fisher-Blando, DM, 75% said they had been the target of a bully and or witnessed bullying at work. Sociopaths bully especially when they achieve positions of power and influence. Bullying acts often occur as small incidents that may appear harmless when viewed in isolation. However, when viewed as a pattern, they can reveal abuse and aggression. Organizations don't have a clear view of how destructive bullying can be for organizational performance. The workplace pressures associated with downsizing and restructuring may intensify bullying among those who are prone to it.
GangStalking permeates every part of the TI's life. It's 24/7 harassment, and the workplace is no exception. TIs become the victims of office mobs in the perp's attempt to destroy the TI's career and inflict financial assaults. GangStalking is not just between a TI and the stalkers. No, the perps will use anyone they can in a campaign. So work environments get destroyed, and the public usually ends up paying for some of the campaign, especially when law enforcement employees and government officials participate in GangStalking. Again, this is not to say that everyone in law enforcement or in the government participates, but just to point out that some GangStalkers will exploit their positions to aid a campaign. The following comes from Unholy Trio, Bullying, Cronyism, and Narcissism at Work, How and Why Workplace Bullies Thrive by Ronald E. Riggio.
Since I first posted about bullying at work, I've heard numerous accounts of workplace bullying. They have ranged from relatively minor, usually because the victim is able to stand up to the bully and get the bully to back off, to the heart-wrenching people who have to quit their jobs, some who suffer from PTSD and are on the verge of suicide. I wanted to talk about two other workplace evils that, together with bullying, constitute an unholy trio that, when combined, can make a workplace a living hell. I have been made aware of leaders, bullies themselves, but who are able to attract cronies who will side with them and deny that the leader is a bully. In fact, these cronies will represent to higher authorities that the bully leader is a caring and compassionate leader, and that the victim is really the problem. In exchange, the bully leader gives favors and resources to these cronies, and the cycle of persecution continues for the poor victims. I think that underlying this process is a clinical or subclinical level of narcissism on the part of the bully leader and the cronies. All too often, these bullies feel justified for their actions against victims. Since they can do no wrong in their own minds, the victim is the problem, and the bullies feel justified in their persecution. My guess is the intent is to bully the person in order to get the victim to quit. The misguided bullies believe in their narcissistic thinking that this will create a better workplace. Bullying, cronyism, and narcissism thrive in the workplace because other employees, bystanders to the bullying process, and higher level leaders refuse to get involved. Often, this is simply on the part of the leaders and bystanders the desire to avoid any sort of conflict. In many cases, the bystanders and even the higher level leaders are afraid that the bullies and their cronies may turn their destructive behavior on them. In the case of some higher level leaders, the bully and cronies are able to dupe them with their assertion that the victim is the real problem. When that happens, it is usually because the leader is not doing his or her job of monitoring what is really going on at the lower levels of the organization. In any case, the unholy trio continues ultimately because of a failure of leadership.
What usually happens in these cases is that the bullies and their cronies own the office. They usually indirectly run the office whether or not they are in leadership positions. Some may even pass up management or supervisory positions because they may feel it will give others a chance to hold them accountable for their actions. They shun the additional responsibility because they usually don't go to work. They go to put on a show for their friends and to force someone into or have something to add to their drama. Leaders who are not part of the office mob or don't approve of it are usually run out by the mobs. A company may hire a competent leader, but when a bully or office mob is indirectly running the office, they expect a new boss to adapt to their rules and culture, not the company's. They generally use the same methods of attacking a higher level employee that they do to their peers. In addition, they usually try to work within the legal framework or company guidelines to avoid detection. So, a company may hire a great manager only to find that the person didn't get along with the team. Sometimes the office mobs may suggest helping to interview new candidates to ensure a better fit, but they will choose someone who will uphold the bullying environment to the company's detriment. This is a delicate issue because the bully tends to play victim to avoid being held accountable and will have their cronies back them up. It's not just lower level employees that should be of concern. Companies need to beware of the bully managers or bosses who try to play the victim. It may seem confusing to figure out what's really going on, but with some serious analysis, it could be determined whether a boss was a bully, truly wasn't a good fit, or the victim of an office mob. A company has to be careful because bullies don't care about anyone but themselves. The company's goals and culture are not their primary concern. They will use the company to punish the victim. If the victim decides to file a lawsuit, the company usually has to bear the responsibility and the consequences of office mobbing. The aftermath of the bully incidents and lower morale are the cost of allowing a bully to take over. The worst position a company can be in is in a legal battle caused by a bully or office mob and a victim that seeks justice. The company can find itself at the bully or office mob's mercy and will be used as a tool because the bully or office mob won't hesitate to blackmail or betray the company should the truth of the mob come out or if the company tries to hold them accountable. A wise company would stop a bully or office mob before it starts, or at least stop it in its tracks if one already exists. The following comes from Workplace Bullying, Aggressive Behavior and Its Effect on Job Satisfaction and Productivity by Judith Fisher Blando. How does adult bullying affect the work environment, and does it have any connections to workplace violence?
Previous research indicated the negative effects of bullying behavior on an organization include loss of employee morale, a high level of absence for depression, anxiety, and physical ailments, decreased productivity and profit, a high level of attrition, loss of customers, a poor reputation in the industry, negative media attention, legal action, and workplace violence. Within the study, the relationship between adult bullying behavior and its effect on job satisfaction was examined. Data were gathered to provide a detailed overview of adult workplace bullying. Bullies are the main but least recognized cause of negative stress in an organization. Although bullies continue to receive a salary, bullies usually do not fulfill their duties and obligations. Some bullies survive by plagiarizing other people's work and taking credit for it. Bullies prevent other members of the staff from fulfilling their duties. Over time, targets will spend more time protecting themselves against harassment by bullies and less time fulfilling their duties. The workplace presents a broad range of opportunities for the development and growth of bullies. Although many large organizations have policies against hostile work environments, leaders leaders, managers, and human resource personnel may lack the operational definitions and processes necessary for identifying, investigating, and managing workplace bullying. The quantitative study highlights the bully's descriptive patterns of concern, such as verbal abuse, threatening behavior, sabotage, misuse of authority, and other behaviors listed in the survey that would affect the health, job satisfaction, and productivity of a targeted coworker. A target is driven to helplessness and despair, impotence, and murderous feelings, and may have fantasies of killing a bully. The findings provide leaders information on determining and eliminating bullying behavior. The results include explanations of mistreatment, workplace culture, and the impact bullying has on an organization.
This excerpt stated that there can be a loss of customers. Companies need to realize that workplace bullying can create an environment that repels customers. Service-based industries should take note that workplace bullying can spill from the break room onto the floor. Bullies will try to embarrass their targets in front of clients and or try to steal a target's clients. They have no problem dragging the client or customer into their campaign. In addition, bullies and their cronies don't stop at trying to choose their bosses, but they also choose customers. They have no problem running out customers or clients that they view as troublesome or not worth it. What the company views as a valuable client is not as important as what they view as valuable. For bullies, a valuable customer or client is someone who plays by their rules and can be of use to them later on. In that way, they try to leverage power over customers by withholding the products or service, making the transactions difficult, or denying good customer service. Bullies and their cronies may bring in business, but it's probably from clients that benefit the bully more than the company and gives the bully some leverage over the company. So, can a work environment encourage adult bullying?
Some places and situations are more conducive to bullying than others. A harsh, malicious, or harmful worker would not survive in a healthy organization. People, for social, environmental, and biological reasons, may need to dominate others, and the workplace provides them with a location that, if not properly managed, allows them to exercise their need to control. A concern is that bullying appears to be tolerated and is therefore becoming embedded in many organizational cultures. Yandrick noted bullying is a problem that knows no geographic boundaries and is not confined to a particular industry. The work group itself may play a role in the bully environment. Co-workers may stand by as silent witnesses. The more co-workers are divided into informal cliques and gangs, the more likely they are to ignore bullying and may even unconsciously support it. Previous studies indicate adult bullying is a more common event than thought and can have serious consequences for organizations. 1 in 6 American workers will experience some sort of bullying on the job. Thus, bullying remains one of the workplace's most overlooked scandals, lowering morale, job satisfaction, and productivity while driving healthcare-related costs up and making employers vulnerable to lawsuits or disability claims. Frequently, bullies are ineffective in their own jobs and survive by stealing the ideas of another and taking credit for coworkers' contributions. Research shows that workplace bullies are best able to develop and reinforce their behaviors in organizations that use hierarchy for power and status, use length of service as opposed to performance as a success marker, or use reverse upward positional attainment as opposed to goal achievement. Furthermore, bullied workers are usually reluctant to report the problem. Bully behavior is a performance issue that calls for discipline. Many incidents are witnessed by coworkers who remain passive, supporting the bullies with their silence. Others walk away feeling the bullying behavior is none of their business. Most targets say nothing for fear of retribution. Bullies bully because they can, and they do so with exemption and freedom from punishment, harm, or loss.
Workplace bullying or office mobbing is not just an American problem. How do other countries handle it?
European countries with strong public awareness and government-funded research, including Great Britain, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, have implemented general preventative actions against workplace bullying, including establishing anti-bullying legislation. European countries have been more proactive than the United States in passing legislation against adult workplace bullying. NAMI posited the United States is at least 20 years behind Sweden, 10 years behind England, and 4 years behind Australia regarding a focus on workplace bullying.
What are the costs of workplace bullying?
Workplace bullying is costing employers money and costing employees their health and usually their jobs. Workplace bullying affects direct and indirect cost to the organization. Direct costs are easier to identify. Employee absence, increased turnover, increased legal fees, and increased security expenses. Turnover cost an organization dearly, not only through the loss of industry knowledge, but also in time and money spent recruiting and training new employees. Recruitment is a labor-intensive event, and it is fair to estimate that productivity in a new job is around 50% for the first 6 months. Indirect costs are more difficult to quantify, but can be seen in a stressful environment, low morale, and lowered productivity. Bullying-related stress include mental, emotional, and physical fatigue, which contributes to job dissatisfaction. Symptoms of anxiety and depression can lead to headaches, hypertension, sleep disorders, and other stress-induced illnesses. Assessing the cost of a downturn in productivity can be difficult. Needham noted a conservative estimate would be that productivity decreased by at least 20% in a department or organization where there is low morale for any reason. As long as bullying is a tolerated behavior, organizations will lose high morale, valuable employees, and profits.
At work, you have to deal with different personalities, some more aggressive than others, and work with people you don't like. Why don't the victims just grow up and get over it?
Bullying at work is not only about aggressive behavior. Bullying behavior can destroy a target's health, ability to work, emotional well-being, self-worth, and financial condition. Workplace bullies have a strong negative impact upon the business for which they work. When a bullying atmosphere begins to pervade an organization, morale is destroyed and productivity is affected. The workplace often contains distorted personality types that seem to have just one purpose: to find somebody else to attack, to belittle, to criticize, and to destroy. Many leaders and managers either fail to recognize the problem or they themselves are the problem. Short-sighted managers may misconstrue intimidating, aggressive bullying as good management or generating healthy competition among employees. Short-sighted managers may also believe intimidating bullying behavior motivates employees to get things done. The study showed bullying causes a decline in morale, excessive absenteeism, turnover in affected units, work team disruption, recruitment problems, an increase in workers' compensation claims, disability claims, and discrimination complaints, and employee sabotage, resulting in decreased productivity. Workplace bullying also leads to time wasted in problem resolution, union grievance procedures, lawsuits, and workplace violence. Bullying in the workplace is far too widespread. To understand bullying, a person must know bullying is different from harmless incivility, rudeness, boorishness, teasing, and other well-known forms of interpersonal torment. Bullying at work is the repeated, malicious mistreatment of a target by a harassing bully driven by the bully's desire to control the target. Workplace bullying is persistent, unwelcome, intrusive behavior of one or more individuals whose actions prevent others from fulfilling their duties.
What is the workplace bully trying to do?
The most common objective of bullies is to gain power, control, and domination over someone else. The definition of a typical bully is a person whom exhibits aggressive behavior that is intended to cause harm or distress, occurs repeatedly over time, and occurs in a relationship in which there is an imbalance of power or strength. The term bullying in this study refers to a situation in which one or more individuals perceive they are subjected to consistent, persistent, and repetitive negative acts that are meant to harm. These acts can be by one or more co-workers, supervisors, or subordinates, causing the target mental or physical stress and anguish.
What methods do the office mobs use?
Bullying behavior can take many forms, including defamatory remarks, intimidation, social exclusion, and physical violence. Bullying exerts short-term and long-term psychological effects on both bullies and their targets. Bullies are equally likely to be male or female. The common stereotype of a bullied person is someone who is weak, eccentric, or a loner. In contrast, targets chosen by adult bullies are very often capable, dedicated staff members who are well-liked and respected by co-workers. Bullies are most likely to pick on people with an ability to cooperate and who have a non-confrontational personality. Bullies consider this capability a threat and determined to cut the target down. Aggression is a reactive behavior where stress and frustration build up noxious aggressive energy that is released in the form of aggressive behavior. Job stress is the harmful physical and emotional reactions that occur when bullies challenge the capabilities, resources, or needs of targets. Job stress can lead to poor mental and physical health and even injury.
Sometimes jobs can be stressful and challenging. Isn't that part of job stress?
The concept of job stress is often confused with challenge, but these concepts are not the same. A challenge energizes and stimulates employees psychologically and physically and motivates workers to learn new skills and master their jobs. When a task or problem is solved, satisfaction is the result. Thus, challenge is an important ingredient for healthy and productive work. But a continuously aggressive workplace is not.
How does bullying in the workplace start?
Buy-in showed an individual has different ways of reacting when participating in groups. Two kinds of tendencies appear. One is directed towards the accomplishment of the task, and the other seems to oppose it, similar to a fight or flight reaction. The more an individual is rewarded for narcissistic behavior, the more selfish that individual becomes. The ego-building behavior has been beneficial and is the only way the individual can survive in the social world. Adam and Crawford described an increase in bullying behavior that takes place in the office environment. By valuing the power and control over others that their behavior evokes, leaders and managers play a crucial role in the identification of both bullies and targets and can be very instrumental in decreasing and preventing bullying behaviors. When leaders or managers are bullies, targets feel no other recourse than to fight back or to relocate to another position. Most organizations find it difficult to terminate bullies, yet employees who bully others are too costly to keep. Bullies purge the best and brightest employees, terrorize survivors, and undermine legitimate business interests. Traditional anti-harassment and conflict resolution procedures and processes do not help with workplace bullying. Bullies are not simply competitive employees. Their behavior undermines productivity.
How does an adult adult bully choose his or her target?
Persad believed the target is not randomly selected and that it is entirely predictable who will suffer in the workplace. Lynch noted the most common cause of bullying is that bullies feel insecure and target someone more competent than the bullies are. Targets are a diverse group of normal and talented employees. Workplace bullies mostly target individuals who are intelligent, are effective at what they do, have high emotional intelligence, and are good networkers. Targets have personality traits and characteristics that bullies wish they had themselves. A main characteristic of bullies is an inability to see wrongdoing in themselves. Anyone can be bullied, but competent, confident people are often targeted because bullies feel threatened and aggressive behavior allows bullies to feel in control.
Why don't targets just report the bullying to the Human Resources Department?
When bullies consistently get their own way, toxic and harmful workplace environments are created for targets and co-workers. Leaders and human resource personnel may be disinclined to take action in dealing with situations which may mean siding with a bully and attacking targets because it can be difficult for targets to defend themselves. A leader or human resource director might even fear for his or her own job when a bully is on the rampage. Alternatively, leaders and human resource personnel may lack the expertise in dealing with bullies or with the complaints submitted from the targets of bullying. Bullies in the workplace often view the innocent acts of co-workers as hostile and personally threatening and seek revenge for perceived attacks through intimidation or physical means. The compulsion to act aggressively is also highlighted in bullies' constant demands for respect and consideration, rarely reciprocating the same treatment to others. There is considerable consensus that workplace bullies are selfish, self-obsessed, inadequate, insecure, and totally insensitive. Workplace bullies display gross inadequacies in their ability to communicate in an open and healthy manner. They frequently lack vision or initiative, and they are often threatened by competence.
What if the person accused of being a bully is not being aggressive, but just being assertive?
Workplace bullies who use aggression to secure their own ends are generally well known, even if they are not reported. The Workplace Bullying and Trauma Institute in Bellingham, Washington, discovered bullying often stems from abusers' insecurity or even envy of other employees. Bullies can be passive-aggressive or simply aggressive, but are rarely assertive. According to the theory of aggressive communication, assertiveness is a constructive trait. If an individual possesses the trait of assertiveness, the trait is usually used to achieve personal goals while creating positive feelings in others.
Why don't bullies just get training on how to work without bullying?
Normally, bullies do not admit to bullying, most likely because aggressive behavior is not socially acceptable, and narcissistic bullies do not consider their behavior as bullying. When close to being outwitted and exposed, bullies feign victimhood and turn the focus on themselves, which is another example of manipulating people through his or her emotion of guilt, such as crying and sympathy. Female serial bullies are especially adept at making themselves the center of attention by claiming to be the injured party while portraying their target as the villain. When a target tries to explain the situation, the target is labeled paranoid. Eventually, the workplace is paralyzed by fear and apprehension, incapable of producing quality work and susceptible to costly downtime with an unhealthy workforce and an increased liability for destructive employment practices.
So how does someone become a workplace bully? Is it something from childhood or does it just happen?
Evidence from the United States, England, Italy, and Australia showed involvement in bully target situations relating to the kind of parenting each may have experienced and the type of family life a bully may have had. Childhood bullies continue their antisocial behavior throughout their lifetimes. Most bullies remain bullies throughout their lives. Childhood bullies can grow up to be adult bullies, and they may be involved in dating or marital violence or workplace harassment. NAMI and NAMI reported people arrive at bullyhood by at least 3 different paths. Through personality development, by reading cues in a competitive political workplace, and by accident. There are different types of bullies. Recognizing the signs of bullies and knowing the different types can help leaders and targets handle the situation. Less insidious bullies include the know-it-all, who appears as the expert, wants constant attention, and often argues with people, and the sniper, who attacks and criticizes, usually indirectly, demonstrating aggression with sarcasm or saying things under his or her breath. The interrupter constantly interrupts the person speaking, and the bulldozer, who will try to run over everyone to impede progress because he or she is afraid of change. The promotion-seeking bully may have once seemed like a normal, non-threatening, easy-to-get-along with employee. When the promotion-seeking bully receives a small promotion or added authority, he or she becomes power drunk, becomes obsessed with acquiring more power, and constantly plans to move up the ladder of leadership. The aggressive actions of a pressurized bully are temporary. This person does not normally have a bullying personality, but he or she has become stressed, whether from internal or external pressures. This employee loses control and verbally attacks others with hurtful comments or unnecessary harassment. The pressurized bully has temporarily lost the skills to separate his or her stressful feelings from social interactions with other people. The pressurized bully's behavior can be transformed. Less insidious bullies are annoying, yet are not as threatening as the following types of bullies.
You may have occasionally exhibited these traits or the following traits, but that doesn't make you a bully. It becomes bullying when this is done on a consistent basis in order to dominate, embarrass, or harass an innocent person. The less insidious types of bullies may have been passive bullies during childhood and are likely to become an insidious bully's crony. Here are the insidious bullies.
The constant critic. The constant critic is extremely negative and is known as a nitpicker, perfectionist, whiner, complainer, liar, and constant fault finder. This type of bully tends to mask personal insecurity with public bravado. The constant critic is usually loved by senior management because of the ability to get people to produce and work hard. This type of bully plays parent to the target, treating the target as if he or she were a child. The constant critic will aim to destroy any confidence or encouragement an employee may receive from others and will encourage self-doubt in other co-workers. The constant critic bully has a wide variety of tactics. 1. Uses put-downs, name-calling, and insults. 2. Aggressive eye contact, glaring, demands eye contact when speaking to target, but avoids eye contact when spoken to. 3. Reacts negatively to contributions of others, especially the target, usually sighs, frowns, and peers over the top of eyeglasses. 4. Accuses others of wrongdoing. And 5. Blames errors such as doctored documents on others. The constant critic bully. 1. Makes unreasonable demands with impossible deadlines and expects perfectionism. 2. Displays hyper-confident body language to target by sitting on desk with feet up, showing bottom of shoes. 3. Grooms while target is talking. 4. Makes target sit while he or she stands hovering and posturing over the target. 5. Overuses memos, emails, and messages to bury the target. 6. Accepts phone calls during conversations with target, requiring target to wait for resumed discussion. 7. Multitask while in target's presence. And 8. Harshly criticizes the target's work or abilities. The two-headed snake. The two-headed snake is a passive-aggressive type of bully that uses a dishonest style of dealing with people and issues. The snake feigns niceness while sabotaging the target. The so-called friendliness that the snake uses will only be used against the target at a later time. The two-headed snake has tactics that are quite different from the constant critic. Some tactics the two-headed snake uses are as follows. 1. Plays favorites. Makes sure the target does not have the resources to do work. 2. Assigns meaningless and dirty tasks as punishment. 3. Makes derogatory, rude, and hostile remarks towards the target while putting on a rational face for everyone else. 4. Breaches confidentiality and shares private information about the target with co-workers and especially bosses. 5. May create a special personnel file of the target that has defamatory information that may sabotage the target's career. And 6. Steals credit for work done by the target or other co-workers. The two-headed snake is a mean and malicious person. Co-workers should know the two-headed snake comes in 3 varieties: the backstabber snake, the Jekyll and Hyde snake, and the no problem, don't bother snake. It is important to be able to tell the difference between the 3 types of snakes and learn the tactics of each. Determining the type of snake a person is dealing with would make it easier for leaders and co-workers to understand what the bully wants and is trying to accomplish. The backstabber snake. Namie noted this person tells you one thing and then says something entirely different behind your back. The bully kisses the way up the ladder and attacks those below. The backstabber snake will tell a target that the target is wonderful while telling the boss the target is incompetent and needs to be terminated because the target cannot perform his or her duties. The Jekyll and Hyde snake. According to Namie, this snake's sweetness alternates with his or her mean streak. The Jekyll and Hyde snake bully tends to be mean and vicious one minute and kind and encouraging the next. The target is usually the only one who sees both sides of this person. Others may only see the sweet side, leaving them unsympathetic to the target's complaints. The no problem, don't bother snake. When the words no problem, don't bother are spoken by a bully, they are often a warning sign that trouble is not far away. A snake will tell a target no problem after the snake has violated the rules and wants to cover up his or her actions. This person is unethical and expects others to help carry out his or her unethical plans. The screaming Mimi. The screaming Mimi is the stereotypical bully who controls others through fear and intimidation while he or she is emotionally out of control. These bullies can be impulsive and explosive and threaten physical violence. The screaming Mimi bully wants to instill dread in co-workers. He or she is overbearing, self-centered, and insensitive to others, and is also very concerned with being detected as an imposter. The tactics of the screaming Mimi bully include yelling, screaming, cursing, angry outbursts, and tantrums, barking out comments like, "I'm your boss," and "follow my commands," intimidating others through aggressive gestures such as finger pointing, slamming things down, and throwing objects, crowding the target's personal space and moving closer to the target to threaten or make the target anxious, hovering over and sneaking up on the target to startle from behind, constantly interrupting the target during meetings and conversations, denying all the target's feelings and thoughts, and threatening the target with job loss or change. The controller. The controller bully lives, eats, and breathes to control others. He or she never truly experiences life any other way. For a bully, to live is to control others with power. The power, whether real or imagined, is used to generate fear and chaos in a work group. While direct verbal aggressiveness is hurtful, demeaning, and damaging if such episodes are not constant, meant to harass or gain control, the incident may soon pass without effect. The controller is driven by a compulsive need to be right and have things done his or her way. The controller cannot bear to stand by and watch someone do things any other way but his or hers. This bully is convinced his or her way is the only way and will become irate and combative if anyone does things otherwise. Indirect interpersonal aggressiveness, like direct verbal aggressiveness, occurs when people use words as weapons. Examples of indirect aggressiveness include touching the target to signify control, not compassion, spreading rumors, withholding important information, failing to relay messages, destroying personal property, betraying confidences, and undermining others by going behind their backs. The gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is known as the control freak. This bully feels compelled to give orders to the target and control circumstances. The gatekeeper wants to control all resources such as time, supplies, money, and help because the control allows him or her to approve everything. This type of bully is the most transparent of all the controllers. The gatekeeper's tactics are the most obvious, yet they are the most ignored. Namie noted the following tactics of a gatekeeper bully. 1. Silent treatment towards the target. 2. Setting the clock 15 minutes ahead and punishing the target for being late or not allowing the target to leave on time. 3. Cutting the target out of the communication loop by stopping all emails, mail, and memo distribution and not returning phone calls. 4. Refusing to make reasonable accommodations for the target returning to work with a disability. 5. Refusing to follow company internal procedures and government-mandated policies for the target. 6. Denying all privileges and rights to the target if he or she files a complaint against the bully. And 7. Making up new rules constantly and expecting the targets to follow them, but exempting the bully, him or herself. The accidental bully. Some employees may become accidental bullies. The accidental bully is truly unaware of the effects of his or her actions on other people. The accidental bully works as if the rest of the world does not exist. This bully causes harm by using inappropriate comments or actions towards others. The insults used are usually sexist or personal. When the accidental bully tries to explain to someone how something is done or how to work on something new, he or she lacks the patience to do so and usually ends up doing the job him or herself. This bully has never learned the subtlety of social interactions. When the accidental bully is confronted, he or she immediately retreats and apologizes for any harm that has been done. In some cases, the bully may learn social skills and it never happens again. Chronic bully. The chronic bully becomes a bully through personal development. These workplace bullies are created through a personal defect, childhood learned behavior, bad management, lack of personal, professional development, and mental illness. Chronic bullies are by far the most dangerous. They always have a target in their sights. While working with others, the chronic bully believes he or she does not have to change, and no one should have to argue with his or her success. A typical statement from this bully would be, "I can't help it. It's just who I am. Don't like it? Leave." Chronic bullies try to dominate people in every way, at work and away from work, and will even go as far as harassing others, such as waiters at restaurants, in addition to workplace peers. Chronic bullies invent flaws in others, which are usually mirror images of their own flaws. These bullies will irrationally stalk and attack others to feel good about themselves. Chronic bullies were usually schoolyard bullies, were never stopped in childhood, and have learned to bully others for what they want, including in the workplace. People usually react with fear to chronic bullies. Chronic bullies are used to getting their way and exerting themselves in a way to cause fear. Bullies will portray themselves as truthful. Bullies belittle, demean, threaten, and humiliate to control their targets. Bullies do not respond to kindness, directness, shame, or withdrawal. Chronic bullies tend to mistake kindness for weakness. Chronic bullies are trapped by their own personalities. By the time bullies reach the workplace, the behavior is too late to change, even if they so wanted. Some chronic bullies have certified disorders that need addressing. These bullies are usually the most malevolent, mean-spirited, and nasty people at work. Chronic bullies destroy careers and shatter the emotional lives of their targets. Randall used the term recidivist to describe repeat perpetrators of bullying and to illustrate the habitual offending nature of the workplace bully. Chronic bullies do not process social information accurately and seem unable to make realistic judgments about the intentions of other people. These intentions are invariably viewed as hostile, and the bully seeks revenge. Although not all chronic bullies have high opinions of themselves, many do conceptualize themselves as being superior and powerful. Opportunistic bullies. The opportunistic bully is the most common workplace bully. This individual is highly self-centered. Opportunistic bullies develop by reading cues in the competitive and political workplace. If this bully is in direct competition with another co-worker, he or she knows that bullying the other person can lead to winning. Opportunistic bullies differ from chronic bullies such that when opportunistic bullies are at home, their competitive nature is suspended. Opportunistic bullies are capable of being friendly, helpful, charming, and caring. They may even be wonderful parents and churchgoers. Opportunistic bullies justify their behavior as survival instincts. It's all part of the game. The bullies can be well connected to the chain of command. Opportunistic bullies usually have allies willing to bypass any punishment, and supporters think that they can do no wrong. Opportunistic bullies know when to stop bothering others if the organization starts to catch on and start punishing bullies for the mistreatment of others. Serial bullies. Lack of knowledge of or unwillingness to recognize or outright denial of the existence of the serial bully is the most common reason for an unsatisfactory outcome of a bullying case for both the employee and the employer. I estimate one person in 30, male or female, is a serial bully. Most cases of bullying involve the serial bully, one person to whom all the dysfunction can be traced. Serial bullies have bullied in the past, are bullying now, and will bully again. Serial bullies display behavior congruent with many of the characteristics of narcissistic bullies. Investigation would reveal a string of targets that have left unexpectedly or in suspicious circumstances, have taken early or ill health retirement, have been unfairly dismissed, have been involved in disciplinary or legal action, or have had stress-related health problems. Serial bullies exploit change and reorganization to hinder recognition of the pattern of previous cases. The presence of corporate bullying seemed to encourage serial bullies. Serial bullies in the workplace are often found in a position with power and have high administrative or procedural content, but little or no creative requirement that provides opportunities for demonstrating a caring or leadership nature. Narcissist bullies. Narcissism is primarily characterized as an extreme focus on one's self. To a narcissistic bully, co-workers are beneath him or her. Narcissists are pathological liars who misrepresent their credentials, talents, knowledge, skills, and accomplishments. The narcissist is exceedingly insecure and seeks to interact with others from a position of superiority, authority, and advantage. Narcissists naturally gravitate towards professions that guarantee authority to fill their ego. Several vocations meet these requirements: medical profession, prisons, teaching, religious positions, corporate management, and celebrity professions such as show business, politics, and sports. Some narcissists may use their looks to obtain their goals. Any hint of equality or disagreement threatens narcissists. Even when all seems well, the narcissist's relationship with co-workers is improper and abusive. Narcissists shamelessly perceive others as objects, mere instruments of gratification, dispensable and easily substituted. As opposed to their colleagues or peers, narcissists in authority are arrogant and lack empathy and ethical standards. Narcissists are prone to immorally and cynically, callously, and consistently abuse their position. Narcissist socialization process and their distortions of reality may be the product of difficult early relationships with primary role models, parents, or caregivers. Narcissists are not deterred by possible punishment and do not consider themselves subject to man-made laws. Their sense of entitlement, coupled with the conviction of their own superiority, lead them to believe in their own invincibility, invulnerability, immunity, and divinity. Narcissists hold human edicts, rules, regulations, and punishment in disdain and consider others' needs and emotions as weaknesses to be exploited. Targets may not recognize the attitudes and behaviors exhibited by narcissists, since targets are generally nice and helpful people by nature. Unawareness does not lessen the bullying nature of the behavior. From an organizational point of view, narcissist behavior is particularly difficult to identify and requires constant vigilance by leaders and human resource departments. The cyberbully. A cyberbully is a person who bullies online. Cyberbullying is sending or posting harmful or cruel text or images using the internet or other digital communication devices. Cyberbullying can take many forms, including instant messaging, email, and websites that enable people to target a single person. Cyberbullies assume there is no punishment for cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is not as prevalent in the workplace as bullying behavior is with children and teenagers, but underlying messages and to whom messages are copied can mask a bully's intentions. Substance abusing bully. Substance abusing bullies may be dangerous because they are not in control of their senses. Rather, the addiction has control over the bully. According to experts, 74% of substance abusing Americans are employed. The bully addicted to alcohol or drugs is uncontrolled and is bullying not to hide feelings of inadequacy, but to hide a habit. Substance abusing bullies will say or do anything to mask the real problem. Professional intervention may be necessary in this bullying situation.
Some bullies may fall under more than one of these categories and may exhibit a mixture of these characteristics. Now that some of the characteristics have been identified, are there phases to bullying?
Field separated the bullying process into 2 phases. Phase 1, subjugation and control, and Phase 2, destruction and elimination. In Phase 1, the principal aim of the bully is to establish control from the selection of the target immediately prior to full disciplinary proceedings. The bully will dominate, subjugate, and deny the right to independence and self-determination to conquer the target. In Phase 2, the bully realizes total control over the target will never be possible, and the only way forward is to eliminate the offending target. One trigger occurs when the bully senses the target has realized what is happening and is starting to take defensive action. Another trigger occurs when the target rebels, perhaps fueled by a sense of anger, resentment, and injustice. A provocation may be the last in a series of annoyances and disappointments that lead to a final loss of patience, temper, trust, or hope, and the target begins assertive and aggressive action in return. In this situation, the bully decides the target will never submit to his or her will, and the only option for the bully is to eliminate the target before choosing another. These interactions go unnoticed by employers, and to eliminate the bullying behavior, the target usually finds another position. Bullies may use aggressive and covert tactics to work their way through an organization. A bully will attempt to destroy a target any way possible and can use any number of tactics. The bully's main intentions are to control, humiliate, harass, intimidate, undermine, and destroy the target. Workplace bullies are clever and portray themselves as smart and quick.
What are some characteristics of a target?
Bullies usually do not torment everyone. The factors that affect target selection include the depth of the bully's inadequacy, the bully's fluctuating self-esteem at any given moment, the bully's position at work, the bully's ability to bully without being punished, the target's resistance, and the target's personality. Anyone can become a target. Being a target hinges on 2 characteristics: a desire to operate, and a non-confrontational personal style. Bullied targets may even blame themselves. Individuals can be victimized no matter who they are, unless the number of targets is overwhelming in a very short time, atypical of bullies. The chosen target is presumed at fault and labeled as antisocial, a wrong fit, not able to work well with others, and so forth. Most targets have demonstrated many positive qualities throughout their professional careers, including competence, intelligence, creativity, integrity, camaraderie, accomplishment, and dedication. Targets are mostly people Goldman described as emotionally intelligent. In general, those who may become targets have learned to work things out. They examine their own behaviors and correct their behaviors when they have made a mistake. Targets are often high achievers, which makes the bully feel inadequate and jealous.
Office mobbing is not isolated to gang stalking, but it is definitely part of the gang stalking campaigns. It's helpful for TIs and members of the audience who have experienced office mobbing to have an idea of the elements that come into play. Oftentimes, the focus is on finding what the victim did wrong or lacked that caused them to be targeted. Then the focus is on diagnosing and fixing the victim. Despite the good intentions, this promotes a blame the victim mentality. It's like saying to the victim, "What did you do to get bullied? Whatever it is, stop doing it and the bullying will stop." This may cause the victim to blame themselves and look for things that are wrong with them when it is the bully who caused the incident. Not all victims are perfect, and self-examination is a good thing, but don't forget that bullies initiate and maintain abusive relationships. The bully often uses deceptive methods that prevent the victim from realizing what is happening until it's too late to effectively defend against the attacks. This overview gives victims of office mobbing a more comprehensive view of what is happening and some reasons why. Most of the time, it isn't the victim's fault, and the victim needs to know that. It's important to note that the effects of gang stalking go past the TI. Just like office mobbing affects the whole office, gang stalking affects society as a whole. Most TIs are functional members of society who have bills to pay like everyone else. But when gang stalking prevents a TI from earning a living, it becomes harder for a TI to meet these obligations. The time a TI wants to dedicate to working and taking care of their responsibilities is stolen by the gang stalkers. They have to constantly keep an eye out for the perps and can do little about the covert attacks on their career. Eventually, a TI will have difficulty paying their bills. Rent is late, loans are defaulted, cars are repossessed, among other things. The people and companies on the receiving end don't get paid. A TI could be a responsible person, but the goal of a campaign is to make a TI look bad. The gang stalkers could care less about the inconveniences to those whom the TI has to pay, and may even try to enlist them in the campaign by fostering resentment over the TI's inability to repay. However, the perps try not to bring too much attention about their role in ruining the TI's financial stability. Gang stalkers have also used their own workplaces to terrorize TIs. Bad customer service, intentionally delayed services, or attempts to run the TI out of stores are common. Gang stalkers also try to get the TI to fight or argue with them when a TI is trying to make a purchase. This is the perps' total disregard for their workplace. They would prefer to have a good laugh with other gang stalkers over agitating the TI rather than maintaining the business's good reputation. While some customers may not notice, others may see something is wrong and side with the TI, even if they don't say anything. Customer service representatives who engage in gang stalking at work can drive away customers as well as increase the amount of complaints or bad reviews that a business receives. Furthermore, TIs have reported that members of the criminal administration system have been involved in the campaigns. This is a gross abuse of authority and is done on tax money. False accusations, malicious prosecutions, denial of police protection, among other things, are common in gang stalking. The public's money should go towards protecting innocent people, not terrorizing them. When the criminal administration system is creating criminals instead of catching criminals, communities enter a lawless state ruled by malicious mobs.
So you're forced into a system of unwanted pursuit? Here's some survival tips.
There is much confusion about aggressive and assertive behavior. Sometimes people behave aggressively while believing that they are being assertive. Let's try to sort out the differences. The following comes from Assertive, Not Aggressive by Hara Ashraf Morano.
Power is a constant player in interpersonal relationships, and the path to power is not dominance over others, but the ability to speak up for one's self. The key distinction is the difference between aggression and assertion. Bullies don't just pick on anybody. Oh sure, in kindergarten they do, but very early on, by about the 3rd grade, bullies learn to target their attacks, singling out specific people to prey on. They engage in a kind of shopping process to find people they can control. Research has shown that those who are victimized by bullies radiate a certain kind of vulnerability. They lack the ability to stand up for themselves. One reason bullies get away with their abuse of power is that they choose those who are unable to assert themselves or defend themselves even when picked on. The tragedy is that no one comes to their aid because the inability to stand up for oneself makes everybody very uncomfortable. Self-assertion is a basic skill in life. Assertiveness means being able to make overtures to other people, to stand up for oneself in a non-aggressive way, to speak up when others make demands, and to make suggestions or requests to others in a group. For some people, assertiveness requires overcoming psychological traits such as extreme passivity, sensitivity to criticism, anxiety, insecurity, and low self-esteem. The real first step towards assertiveness is self-confidence. You develop self-confidence only one way, through the experience of effectiveness in the world. You have to rack up some successes all your own in specific domains of experience. These commonly encompass friendships and other social relationships, academic or work achievements, appearance or style, the cultivation of physical or athletic ability, and moral or ethical vicissitude. Competence in any domain is not a given. It takes work at developing skills. It is also necessary to develop basic communication skills. Leading, offering positive suggestion to peers or colleagues. For example, I have a fun idea. Asking questions in a friendly way. For example, can I get to speak first in the next unit meeting? Rather than, how come you never ask me what I think of our proposal? Supporting, making explicit positive statements to peers about ongoing activity. For example, wow, we've got a really strong action plan for the next meeting, don't we? Above all else, expect that overtures sometimes will be met with failure. It happens to everyone. The trick is to not shrink into a corner, but to collect your wits and get right back into the game. It's not the fact of rejection that distinguishes popular from unpopular people. It's how they deal with rejection. Whenever a suggestion of yours or a bid for action is met with failure, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and generate alternative responses. What are some other things you can say the next time that happens? The more ways of responding you can come up with, the more successful you will become.
That helps with office bombing. It was mentioned earlier that some TI's kids are being bullied. Here's some clarification for teens, although it can still apply to adults. The following comes from assertive versus aggressive, helping your teen understand the difference by Military School Alternatives.
Being aggressive and being assertive are often confused because of different points of view. Being assertive can be healthy and positive, but being aggressive definitely is not. Why are some teens aggressive? An aggressive teen stands up for himself in ways that violate the rights of others. It can involve actions like pushing, hitting, biting, kicking, and hair pulling, or it can involve much more dangerous acts like stabbing, shooting, and rape. More often, parents will see aggressive behaviors like threatening or intimidating others, malicious teasing, taunting, or name-calling, gossiping, spreading rumors, encouraging others to reject or exclude someone from the group. Teens may act out aggressively because it is difficult for them to express fear, disappointment, frustration, or other painful feelings. Aggression can also be a learned behavior. The use of bully tactics is destructive to relationships and ultimately to teen self-esteem. The use of aggressive behaviors such as verbal or physical threats may get teens what they want in the short term, but it spoils relationships in the long run. Advantages of being assertive. In being assertive, your teen is demonstrating self-confidence, self-respect, and the ability to stand up for himself effectively. Being more assertive will help improve a teen's decision-making skills and will make the people around them take them more seriously, which are both important parts of developing into a mature adult. Assertiveness can also be described as respectfully claiming teen rights. An assertive teen is more likely to stand up for her rights and less likely to be bullied. Parents can teach their teens how to act assertively even in situations that involve peer pressure. An assertive teen is willing to negotiate, discuss, compromise, and wait while the other person thinks about their request. These are all behaviors that will help a teen feel good about who they are and what they are trying to accomplish.
A lot of times, kids need to be assertive, but end up being aggressive. The difference is probably clearer now, but let's hear some examples. The following comes from Are You Assertive or Aggressive by Dan Babinski.
Too often, people who think they're acting assertively are really acting aggressively. The mistake is often accidental. In reality, such people are simply trying to get their needs met, but a huge gap differentiates the two behaviors, and a mix-up can bring unintended consequences. The Oxford English Dictionary tells us that the word assertiveness derives from the verb to assert, which according to those Oxford folks means to state an opinion, claim a right, or establish authority. They go on to say that if you assert yourself, you behave in a way that expresses your confidence, importance, or power and earns you respect from others. Let's differentiate that from aggressiveness, which means characterized by aggression, inclined to behave in an actively hostile fashion. A huge difference can exist between claiming a right and being actively hostile. Which approach brings better results? Your answer may depend on your personality, but those who would like to be seen as aggressive might benefit from learning that Machiavellian management styles are much less effective in the long term. Essentially, think of assertiveness as being firm but polite. It's a mindset that says, I want to win, but I'm not going to walk over you to do it. I'm going to respect what you want and work to help you win also. Aggressiveness, on the other hand, is firm but impolite. The aggressive person says, I'm going to win, and I don't care if you get what you want. Milder forms are more ambivalent. I don't care whether or not you get your needs met. Full court press aggressiveness wants the other person to lose no matter what. By the way, non-assertiveness is polite, considerate of other people's perspective, but not firm. That is, unwilling to stand up for one's own needs. Non-assertive people need to understand the differences between assertiveness and aggressiveness so that when they do step forward to get their needs met, they don't go overboard and step on everyone else. Usually, it's here where the formerly uninitiated says, "Oh, I get it now." If that's you, congratulations and welcome to the club. To further your understanding, here are a few more differentiators to help you choose assertiveness over aggressiveness. Aggressive conduct glares or stares at others. Assertive conduct makes friendly, considerate eye contact. Aggressive conduct intimidates others with body language. Assertive conduct shows confident body language that matches the message. Aggressive conduct has an air of inflexibly my way or the highway. Assertive conduct states one's needs but generally considers other perspectives. Aggressive conduct strives to control others. Assertive conduct strives to listen and work with others. Aggressive conduct consider other perspectives only when demanded to do so. Assertive conduct considered others' perspective without needing to be asked. Aggressive conduct values one's self more than others. Assertive conduct values self as an equal to others. Aggressive conduct will intimidate or even hurt others to avoid being hurt. Assertive conduct tries to hurt no one, including self. Aggressive conduct reaches goals usually on the back of others. Assertive conduct strives to reach goals and help others reach their goals too. In many ways, assertiveness means standing up for oneself without walking over other people. Those who have been aggressive can gain assertiveness by exercising higher levels of consideration for other people's point of view. This means developing a genuine desire for listening and not trying to figure someone out by osmosis. For those who have been non-assertive, assertiveness can be gained by standing up for your own point of view. Politeness combined with firmness. This is seeking to get your needs met without backing down, yet not crossing the line or walking on other people's needs, which is falling into aggressiveness. Patience must be developed. Human nature must be considered. The big picture must be seen. Then, with a professionally firm but polite approach, the assertive person earns the respect and cooperation of others much faster and with more commitment than does an aggressive person. Take it from our friends at the Oxford Dictionary. Assertive people are better able to state an opinion, claim a right, and establish authority.
It is important to make the distinction because of the negative consequences of aggression. Aggression is not a bad thing, but it should be used sparingly and not as a replacement for being assertive. Bullies often excuse their obviously aggressive behavior as being assertive. Therefore, a victim of office mobbing who can differentiate between aggressive and assertive behavior is better able to address the issue and collect evidence. When a TI can distinguish between the two, it improves their ability to handle gang stalking incidents. Try it and send your feedback to protectlifenow@yahoo.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats and turn off or mute your cell phones, pagers, and beepers. The show is about to begin.
This street theater comes from Syracuse, New York.
So let me tell you this story. I was waiting for my ride when some gang stalkers started to gather around me. You should see them when they are harassing the TI. They cheer up and start acting warmly towards each other in the morning. My dear, it's so nice to see you. You look lovely. To your face, then I can't stand her. What is she wearing behind your back? Yeah. Can you believe that they actually have the nerve to snub each other? I'm not kidding. This guy was stalking me. He was probably in his 40s and was dressed in jean shorts and a t-shirt. He looked like your average deadbeat. So this gal comes around dressed professionally, looking good, like she has some class. But unfortunately, she had a habit that would scare away most normal people. Yeah, she was a perp. So she gives the prompt as she's walking past me. I wasn't the only one who noticed. The deadbeat noticed too. Now, on any other occasion, he would not have the nerve to approach her. But since he saw that she and him were cut from the same cloth, he went for it. He forgot all about me and was checking her out. I know she noticed because she looked down and tried to walk past him fast. I'm thinking, oops, too late to act like you're too good for him now, hun. He knows your dirty little secret. He was enjoying it and didn't take his eyes off her for a minute. He had this big smile on his face like, I'm one of you. She kept her head down, pretending not to notice him, and even acting like she was ashamed to be noticed by him. What for? She was no better than he was. After she cowered past him, he turned to watch her go, then looked completely satisfied with himself. He probably felt proud to be a gang stalker if people who look like her were the same, but she did not seem to appreciate the association. That's funny. They say birds of a feather flock together, but when he tried to flock towards her, she treated him like he just flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Now it's time for TI News. I'm always looking for news stories about stalking, especially gang stalking. So if you find a news story that appeared in an official news source, please email it to protectlifenow@yahoo.com. So here's the news for today.
The following comes from Phoebe Prince bullying cases over in court, tears, and a portrait of a mother's loss by Fred Contrada. A bullying case that drew international attention after 15-year-old Phoebe Prince committed suicide came to a close Thursday as 3 teens admitted to misdemeanor counts and a final charge was dropped against a 6th defendant. Prince hanged herself with a scarf in her South Headley home on January 14, 2010, sparking a firestorm that consumed the public school system in that town and the public consciousness over the issue of bullying. In Prince's case, the tragic consequences captivated the globe. The death of the immigrant from Ireland helped spark an international campaign to address the issue of bullying and made Prince an icon to many who have suffered that humiliation. In all, 6 former South Headley High School students were charged in connection with classmate Prince. One of 2 boys charged with statutory rape of the underage Prince was scheduled for a pre-trial conference in Hampshire Superior Court on July 6, but Northwestern District Attorney David Sullivan announced his office had dismissed the case against one of the boys at the request of Prince's family. The O'Brien-Prince family has never wavered in what they hoped would be achieved through these cases, a public recognition of wrongdoing, an acceptance of responsibility from the defendants, and a heightened awareness of the harmful consequences of bullying, Sullivan told a crowd of reporters gathered in a conference room at the Mullins Center at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst early Thursday evening. The press gathering took place after cases were resolved against a half-dozen defendants charged with various crimes in connection with the harassment of Prince. Early Thursday, the image of a kind-hearted Prince, as described by her mother, brought tears to the eyes of some of her aggressors as 3 defendant cases were closed in Hadley Juvenile Court. 2 other cases were resolved a day earlier in Hampshire other girl until her 18th birthday. After that time, the cases will be dismissed. A number of other charges against the three were dismissed as well as a result of their agreements. The maximum penalty for conviction on the delinquency charges would have been commitment to the Department of Youth Services. As she did Wednesday when two other defendants reached similar agreements on criminal harassment counts in Hampshire Superior Court, Anne O'Brien, Prince's mother, read compelling statements that painted a vivid picture of her daughter and the grief O'Brien has endured since losing her. Two of the girls harassed Prince in the classrooms and hallways of the high school because of the rumors that Prince was romantically involved with one of the girls' boyfriend, according to prosecutor Stephen E. Gang. One of the girls taunted Prince at the urging of the other girl's boyfriend, who was the male defendant and had also been involved with Prince, Gang said. Their actions, along with those of the boyfriend and girlfriend, made life at school intolerable for Prince in the weeks leading up to her suicide, according to O'Brien. A distraught O'Brien stood up in the court 3 times, Thursday addressing each of the defendants' cases separately. Of one of the girls, she said she terrified my daughter by her anger and physical aggression. Phoebe walked between people in the hallway in case she jumped her. O'Brien compared one girl's threat that she wanted to fight Prince to her daughter's embrace of another student who was having difficulties in school and at home. "I'm so proud of my daughter," she said. "It was a challenge for her to make it through each day without coming to harm." One of the girls who admitted to harassing Prince and was charged with throwing a soft can at her from a car was the only defendant who took responsibility for her actions, O'Brien said, telling the court that the two of them met Wednesday at the girl's request. "She had been asking to meet with me," O'Brien told Judge Daniel J. Swords. "It showed a lot of courage. I'm very satisfied that the accountability and genuine remorse I had been asking for was offered to me by the girl." The girl and her mother wept while O'Brien spoke. One of the other girls also cried when O'Brien read the statement during her disposition. According to the evidence presented by Gang at the 3 court sessions, Prince lived in almost constant terror at school during the last week of her life. One of the girls assailed her in class in front of other students, and the other girl's threats shook her up so much that Prince skipped classes and went to the school nurse. Another girl made disparaging remarks about Prince outside the school auditorium and threw a can at her while Prince was walking home on the day of her suicide, Gang said. When one of the girls called the male defendant to tell him what she had done, he replied, "Good job," Gang said. Attorney Alfred Chamberlain, who represented one of the girls, took issue with the prosecution, saying that the defendants in the Prince case had been overcharged. Chamberlain called the plea agreement an acknowledgement by the Northwestern District Attorney Office that felony indictments were not warranted. Chamberlain also said that his client had been demonized in the minds of the American public. Sullivan said Prince's mother and father worked with the district attorney's office throughout the investigation and regarded her prosecutors with mercy, compassion, and understanding. He was less enthusiastic about what he deemed the South Headley school system's mishandling of the crisis, but affirmed predecessor Elizabeth D. Scheibel's decision not to bring criminal charges against the school officials. In response to questions about whether Scheibel overcharged the youths 16 months ago in response to intense public pressure, Sullivan denied she did and said the case will serve as an emblem for peace and safety for every school child in America and beyond. Some of the arguments against holding bullies accountable is that there has to be some specific law created just for bullying. This is a good point, but it shouldn't stop bullies from being prosecuted until the details of such laws are worked out and passed. These kids were held accountable for their actions, and these cases can be used to deter bullying. An innocent life shouldn't be lost before something is done. Of course, when dealing with shady characters like those involved in gang stalking, it is important to be careful because they will diligently try to avoid prosecution. But this shouldn't be an excuse to do nothing. There may be some challenges to prosecuting gang stalkers, but the main one is that it's not being seriously investigated. Gang stalking borrows a lot from mobsters, street gangs, and drug dealers. If these rings can be infiltrated and broken up, then gang stalking could too. It's not the first multi-criminal operation. The groundwork for exposure is there. It just has to be adjusted to this particular crime. The following comes from accused craft plant shooter is not the usual suspect by Susan Snyder. If Hiller killed her co-workers at the Kraft Foods baking plant in Northeast Philadelphia last week as charged, she would join a rare but possibly emerging breed, women as workplace killers. Women commit fewer than 5% of homicides and assaults in the workplace, said Larry Barton, a teacher at the FBI Academy and author of 4 books on crisis management and violence at work. And as a rule, they're much less likely to kill in general than men. They tend to internalize their anger or use words rather than haul out a gun in a public place and open fire, experts say. But in the last year, several high-profile cases of women killing in the workplace have occurred, including a professor accused of killing 3 colleagues and wounding 3 others in a February rampage after being denied tenure at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I cannot recall a 1 or 2 year period in which we've had as many women with multiple victims, said Barton, who is also professor at the American College, a risk management and insurance school in Bryan Moore. In March, a Tarpon Spring, Florida supermarket worker, fired for threatening to kill a co-worker, returned to work and made good on her threat. And though not as recent, in January 2006, a former U.S. Postal Service employee killed 6 colleagues and then herself at a mail sorting plant in Goleta, California. Is it too early to call it a trend, or is it just an anomaly? Barton wondered. In the Philadelphia case, Hiller is charged with killing 2 female co-workers, both of Philadelphia. She's also accused of shooting a male co-worker in the neck. He was in critical condition at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. Police said Hiller, in an ongoing dispute with her colleagues, had accused them of talking behind her back and spraying her with chemicals. She was suspended Thursday night and sent home after an argument with those co-workers. She returned and pressed her way in by holding 2 unarmed security guards at gunpoint, authorities said. She found her targets in a break room and opened fire, police said. Women are much less likely to kill than men, statistics show. A study by the University of Tennessee found that women committed 15% of homicides, though they make up more than half of the U.S. population. Women are much more likely to target spouses, intimate acquaintances, or relatives, the study also found. The following comes from Women's Alleged Shooting Spree, Rarity in Workplace Violence by David Lohr. She just had some run-ins with them and imagined different things that were going on that really couldn't be proven, a Kraft employee told NBC Philadelphia. The following comes from 2 Killed, Woman Arrested After Kraft Plant Shooting by ABC Action News. In regards to suspect Hiller, officials say, from time to time, this employee had run-ins with others. However, we don't believe she had a history of violent behavior. Last November, Hiller filed a complaint with OSHA saying that she was being sprayed with chemicals, including deer urine. Kraft responded that it investigated and the complaints were unfounded. A lot of employees won't make formal complaints about office mobbing because the complaint may be used against them or to make them look unstable. The report said that Hiller filed a complaint about the other employees and was escorted out after having an argument with these employees. Another report stated that her boyfriend said that she had spoken to him and said she had enough of what was happening. This appeared to be an ongoing issue in which she sought assistance. The company did investigate but said that the complaints were unfounded, and a different article quoted a colleague that said that Hiller had some run-ins with her co-workers and imagined different things that were going on that really couldn't be proven. Before learning more about office mobbing, it is easy to dismiss Hiller as a woman who just lost it. It would be easy to blame her for everything and dismiss her complaints. For the record, workplace violence, especially workplace shootings, are wrong. A victim should seek legal and non-violent ways to deal with office mobbing. The goal of sharing this is prevention. The Kraft food incident affected every co-worker, everyone who is employed, the families of those who were shot, whether or not they were bullies, the family of the shooter, and the rest of the nation. This did not have to happen. Workplace bullying does not have to happen. Office mobs must stop their selfish, inconsiderate behavior and realize that they are putting everyone at risk while they are the only ones enjoying their cruel games. If there was something in place to effectively address complaints of bullying, the Kraft food incident probably wouldn't have happened. Victims usually seek out assistance, and violence is a last resort. It is important for bullies to take note that their behavior can cost them their lives. The victims may experience something similar to battered person syndrome and lash out violently against the bullies. Here's some more information about the battered person syndrome. The following comes from Battered Person Syndrome by Wikipedia.
The condition is the basis for the battered women defense that has been used in cases of physically and psychologically abused women who have killed their abusers. Defense lawyers used the syndrome to explain premeditation as follows. The woman could not leave the relationship due to learned helplessness, nor could they fight back when actually being attacked. In the face of increasing violence, the woman's belief was that the only way she could protect herself and her children was to eliminate the partner when he was more vulnerable, for example, while sleeping.
Battered person syndrome was initially known as the battered woman syndrome. I mentioned earlier that the term bullycide was coined when the connection between bullying and the victim's suicide was noted. Earlier, it was mentioned that a target is driven to helplessness and despair, impotence, and murderous feelings, and may have fantasies of killing a bully. There may be a link between workplace shootings that followed complaints of bullying and office mobbing. In that case, the term bullied workers syndrome may apply. Similar to battered woman syndrome, there is an element of learned helplessness as the victim receives little assistance with the bullying and may have difficulty finding a new job that fits into their lifestyle. Since an investigation may not lead to any findings, the victim may feel as if she or he can't fight back without the clear evidence that the covert abuse isn't allowing him or her to get. Remember that bullies try to dominate others, which means trying to take away the victim's personal power. Bullies also tend to get bolder the more they are able to blame and/or silence the victim. So the mobbing may get worse until the victim feels the only way to regain his or her power back is to eliminate the bully, hence the violence or shooting. Now, in gang stalking, one of the goals is to drive the TI to violence. By using this case as an example, you can see that when gang stalkers drive the TI to violence by using office mobbing, the negative effects ripple to the other segments of society. The following comes from Are You Being Bullied at Your Office by Tori Johnson. Good Morning America viewers flooded Tori Johnson with emails about how to deal with workplace bully after she talked about how to spot one and what to do. Today, Tori offers more advice on handling bullies at work in response to some viewers' questions. One viewer in New Jersey wrote, "My boss is an 80-year-old woman. She's extremely intelligent and driven. Her way of succeeding in a male-dominated industry has been to bully everyone from employees to vendors. She is very quick to fly off the handle and berate in front of others. Her favorite word is idiot." Every bullet point on the show applies in this situation. Calmly confront the bully with kindness. Obviously, she's in a difficult situation, especially in a small company where the boss is determined to follow her rules and nobody will tell her differently. My advice here is to try to kill her with kindness. Perhaps there's a moment of downtime when you can tell her that you admire the business she's built. There's no disputing that it's an incredibly successful business. Yet, there's one critical detail that you've been curious about. Why would someone who is so successful, at the top of her game, resort to name-calling and bully tactics when it accomplishes nothing? Tell her that you've always believed that you catch more flies with honey. Let her know that even at 80, it's never too late to change, and she should seriously consider the chance to leave a positive legacy in the industry. Again, calm, not confrontational. Worth a shot. I heard from Andrea, a 55-year-old single mother in Michigan. Just this month, I left my job of 9 years because of bullying. My boss did this to me constantly. This time, he didn't like the direction of the discussion. Before I could even finish the sentence coming out of my mouth, he told me, like a naughty child, to clock out and go home. Then my phone rang, and I answered it. He reached over the back of my chair, disconnected the call, took the receiver out of my hand, and said, "Leave." So I did, with all my things, leaving only my keys and badge. Leave a toxic culture. Many people emailed me to ask if it's okay to quit a job where the boss is a bully. They're worried about being seen as a coward or a quitter. Sometimes leaving is the best and the only solution. The critics may say that's giving in to the bullies. Those bullies would like nothing more than to see you cry uncle and quit. But instead of worrying what they may or may not think, do what you know in your head and your heart is best for you. Your mental health and self-esteem are far more important than any one position. As hard as it may be to pound the pavement, you can always get a new job, but it's far more challenging to rebuild your crushed confidence and your declining health. An accountant in Atlanta wrote, "It's as if you were talking about me. It isn't the words as much as it's the sigh, facial expressions, and hand gestures, utterly dismissive and demeaning in meeting after meeting. It's a constant in front of my colleagues and clients. I shake daily wondering what's worse, that she does this to me or that everyone turns a blind eye." Express support for coworkers. This is not a problem limited solely to the nearly 40% of workers who say they've been targets of bullying. This is a significant workplace challenge that all of us should care about. None of us should sit in silence. If you see something, say something. That doesn't mean gossiping or getting confrontational. Let someone know that you see what they're going through and you'll support them any way you can. Talk to management. When it's feasible, speak up to management about what you've witnessed. If you're concerned about pointing fingers, show them articles on the cost of bullying, related absenteeism, high turnover, and productivity loss. Since bullying is costly to the company's bottom line, that may cause them to take note. You can also suggest the introduction of company policies that support a healthy workplace. Contact lawmakers. Contact your lawmakers where bills may be pending on anti-bullying, healthy workplace legislation. If no such proposal has been introduced, make your opinions known if you feel strongly about the need for such laws. Nearly 40% of American workers say they have experienced workplace bullying, according to a new study A University of Minnesota report released earlier this month found the emotional toll associated with workplace bullying can be more severe than that of sexual harassment. While sexual harassment is illegal, workplace bullying currently is not. But new legislation aimed at changing that has been introduced in several states. Bullying in the workplace takes so many forms. Among them, humiliating comments or actions. Making comments or taking actions desired to humiliate you is a form of bullying. In a meeting or at the water cooler, you offer what you think is a good idea. A bully smirks and calls you a moron. A bully laughs at you or mocks you in public. Excessive yelling. A boss can disapprove of your performance. A boss can be upset if you're repeatedly late. But none of that is an excuse to be a screamer, in private or in front of others. Yelling repeatedly is a bully tactic. Undermining your status at work. This includes withholding key information from you. Excluding you from an email distribution once could be an oversight. Doing it consistently or always intentionally leaving you out of meetings when you ought to be in the loop is the pattern of a bully. Failing to give credit. Just as damaging is failing to give you the credit you're due. If you're working diligently and producing results, but the boss or a colleague refuses to acknowledge you or your contribution on an ongoing basis, as if you simply don't exist, that's bullying. There are steps workers can take to stop bullies from continuing to target them. Stop it on the spot. If you can, nip it on the spot. People who bully do it because they can, and they won't stop until someone stops them. So if you're feeling strong, tell them firmly and directly, don't speak to me that way. I'm professional and cordial to you, and I expect the same in return. Walk away from a tirade. You can also walk away. As a child, you might have had to sit still and take it from an intimidating parent. Not so at work. Stand up and excuse yourself. I have to go to the restroom. I have an appointment. I need some water. This is especially useful if you're on the verge of getting emotional, which you don't want a bully to witness. Confront the bully calmly. When you've taken a breath and have had a chance to compose your thoughts, calmly confront the bully. Cite examples of the behavior that has been humiliating and demeaning and state that you expect it to stop. No name calling, just facts delivered in a reasoned manner. Document the abuse. Documenting bully behavior is really important. Without the facts of when, where, witnesses, and so on, all clearly spelled out in writing, you risk being brushed off as a petty complainer or a tattletale. You can sound like you're upset that someone is picking on you or that you're thin-skinned. Going to HR or a top manager is serious, and to be taken seriously, you want to present the facts. Facts are much more harder to dispute and to ignore than emotions, and by putting everything in writing as it happens, you're less likely to forget key details. Find a new job. If management doesn't help you, find a new job. No job is worth your mental and physical health or repeated blows to your self-esteem. You must control your sanity and your self-worth, and that sometimes means removing yourself from a culture or situation where you believe both are in jeopardy. Several states have anti-bullying legislation pending, but until workplace bullying is illegal, it's often costly and undesirable for targets to pursue legal remedies. While I wholeheartedly agree that no one should be driven out of their job because of a bully, finding another job makes a lot of sense in theory. In reality, most people don't have the time or the means to bring about prolonged legal action. It's often quicker and healthier to get out of a bad situation and find new work. While some critics argue that leaving is exactly what the employer or the bully wants, to drive you out, your mental health and well-being should be your primary concern. Don't stay in a toxic environment simply because you're not willing satisfaction of seeing you walk out. Even if you're not a target, workplace bullying is a serious issue that every worker should care about. If you see something, say something. Don't allow your colleagues to suffer in silence. You don't have to be confrontational, nor should you spread gossip, but be willing to defend a coworker who you believe is being mistreated. This article offers some helpful advice on how to deal with office mobbing. TIs can also use this advice for pure office mobbing cases. In the case where the office mobbing includes gang stalking, TIs have to make some adjustments to fully address the issue. That's it for this episode. If you would like to share your stalking story with Tenani, please check out the Protect Life Now's organized harassment video on YouTube. You can also email protectlifenow@yahoo.com for more information. If any gang stalkers disagree with the information presented, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.